back to the Collector's Cast. Once again, we're here to talk about all things collecting. I'm your host, Clint Wilson. With me, as always, is my best friend and co-host, Mike Bloski. How are you doing today, Mike?
Hey, good, buddy. How are you, Clint?
I'm pretty good, but I doubt I'm as good as you because the subject we're going to do today is so close to your own heart. We are going to talk about the collecting of boats, and not just the little toy model one we have on the table, but actual big boats, as you do. I'm just going to hand the reins over to you, Mike. Tell us all about boats. What makes you like them? What got you into them?
Well, I've always liked being near the water, and I always liked boats. And I think early, those early James Bond movies of James Bond on the French Riviera, those places in those, beautiful mahogany runabouts, and some of them were yachts, but they were all around, stuff from 20 to, let's say, 45, 50 foot.
Okay, we're not as so advanced as Live and Let Die, the speedboat jump. That's a fiberglass.
No, but very collectible, which we're going to get to that.
Okay.
Very Glastron Carlson fiberglass boats, very collectible and and sought after. But yeah, that's where it sort of all started for me, and I always enjoyed any type of boats, wooden boats. So I naturally gravitated toward Chris Crafts, who are, the legendary Chris Crafts, who, were really credited for bringing boating to the average family and making boating affordable, and even affordable yachts in some cases, right?
And so when would that have happened? Like what decade would the general public have suddenly got into boating more?
In the 50s.
Okay.
Yeah.
So before that, it was like a rich person's game?
Before that, it was definitely a rich person's game. And Chris Craft started like the production of actually producing boats like on an assembly line in 1922 is when they started. They had been in business long before that, I believe like 1897.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And Christopher Columbus Smith is who started
Chris Craft is named after.
Yeah. And so Chris Craft really was the spearheaded the pleasure boating in America and in North America. And so after the war, the Philippines was full of high quality mahogany.
Oh, yes.
And in the Philippines, they're wanting to repay America.
Yes.
For the war effort. A lot of mahogany was shipped to America, and that's what Chris Craft started building these wonderful boats out of. And so,
well, they're always beautiful to the eye.
Yeah,
I've loved them forever. This is not a Chris Craft have here.
This is a Riva.
For those audio-only listeners, I've got a remote control boat model, probably about 2.5 feet long. And I just love Chris Craft boats and old wooden boats. And I probably thought this was a Chris Craft when I bought it, but I'm a real layman. And this would be a what, sorry?
It would be a Riviera or an Aqua Riva. Oh, okay. Again, mahogany and beautifully made, a little bit more modern than most of the Chris Crafts we think about. Sort of like on Golden Pond, the movie on Golden Pond.
Just watched that the other day, and they had the classic Chris Craft.
Yes.
And I was going to ask you don't think they crashed a real like vintage mint Chris Craft in that for the scene, did they?
I don't think they did. That was a replica built Glenelg model.
Oh, okay.
And which is another whole area of collecting too. But the thing about it, Clint, is these old wooden boats take so much maintenance to an upkeep, and then the restoration. You have to be quite skilled to restore an old Chris Craft, to have the carpentry skills to do the carpentry work the way it was done, find the proper materials. But there's lots of them being restored, and there are a lot of them that are still in very good condition, right? Mm-hmm. And even to the point where you can still buy them.
Can you buy original unrestored? Or are they just all so far gone now that they have to be restored, or they just don't?
No,
Is there such thing as an
an
unrestored?
original. Oh yeah, there's
How do you
original
keep it,
survivors. Well,
That's
those
all a maintenance thing, I guess.
yeah, and those would have been boats that would have been had the regular maintenance all the time. They would have been taken out of the water in the fall, put probably in a heated garage, and then whenever a soft spot came up in one of the planks or in somewhere in the boat, they would have immediately had it repaired and stayed on top of it just like any type of an old car or anything like that, right?
Sure.
So I think so there are definitely ones that are still out there, survivors, but no old wooden boat is without maintenance.
Okay.
And once you get into the larger boats, say you start getting into a 40-foot boat, you get a 40-foot crisscross Constellation, weighing close to 40,000 pounds, or maybe a little bit over with some equipment. Now it's a massive thing. You have to have the space to put it. You have to have the skills and the techniques to change out rotted planks and stuff like that. So it becomes a very, very skilled.
It's a labor of love for you, obviously, or otherwise you wouldn't do it.
Yeah, but after you've done a few, you say, well, maybe I won't do any more. No, it is a labor of love, and it's a lot of maintenance to keep them up. And but where there are a lot of people collecting now are the boats that are, let's say, 16 to 24 feet.
Okay.
Those runabouts, right?
Something you can trailer easy.
Something that can be trailered, something that can be kept in a boathouse easily. And let's face it, now the price of moorage places has just skyrocketed. So, and the cost of doing it, just like everything, the cost of building a hot rod, is crazy now, right? Because you take it to a garage and you're going to spend $150 an hour having someone work on it. So these boats are the same. But what has emerged in the last probably 10 years in the collecting world, as these old wooden boats get harder to find, and sometimes they're just at the point where they're not worth saving, is the fiberglass boats.
Okay.
Because right at that point where mahogany was expensive and fiberglass sort of was invented for doing boats, then they found out, well, we can make these real cool designs out of molds.
Yeah.
And it became way more cost efficient, and fiberglass became a thing that was sort of let's say space age.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. So now those fiberglass boats from the late 60s and into the 70s, like the boat in the James Bond movie that made the famous jump, Glastron Carlson. So Glastron Carlson came out with some just fabulous futuristic designs.
My favorite, and I'm a total layman when it comes to this stuff. Like, I can't tell a Chris Craft from a Riviera at a glance like you can. My favorite era, I think, of speedboats and that were the cool 70s racing boats they usually had a big car V8 with a big intake, a riser, and maybe a blower, and sounding meat, and those painted in those sparkly metal flake colors. You know what I'm talking about? Those 70s.
Yeah, the 70s jet boats.
Yeah, those always
absolutely
get me going, and they just sound so mean out on the water.
Still a lot of those around, huge collecting and boat clubs in California. There's one up here in British Columbia as well. Again, those boats very specific because you can only really use them on calm lake water. They're very shallow. You don't want to hit a wave with one of those, right?
Well, it kind of gets me thinking in line with the car collecting. Same thing, these old vehicles, guys get together in clubs, but they don't do it on stormy, rainy days, and they don't go through big, tough road courses. They, typically speaking, they meet in a park and they look at their stuff and they kind of enjoy it as a club, whereas the boat guys must be similar, like calm lake, calm day, let's all get together and have a picnic.
Very fair weather.
Yeah, fair weather collecting. But you have to, because otherwise you're going to just destroy stuff.
Yeah, and too, Clint, the thing with collecting boats and restoring boats is that it's much simpler than a car. Especially like you're saying, like these vintage jet ski boats, right? You have the engine, you've got your jet propulsion, but then basically you have seats and a steering wheel and a bunch of fiberglass. So it's mechanically it's simpler, and I think
I don't know. I look at the dash area on some of your big boats. There's a lot of gauges, a lot of wires running there.
In those boats, yeah. There's not, but there's, like I said, there's so much. There's such a vast community of boat collectors. Almost, I wouldn't say is equal to cars because it's maybe a little more specialized. But even in just finding boat advertising and certain boat
related
parts.
things.
Related things
Well,
to
I was
boating,
actually going to make a point about that earlier, that nautical stuff in general, Nautica in general, old portholes, old lights off boats, anchors, old ship's bells, all of that stuff, very collectible. And that's the point we should make maybe to collectors out there. If you love boats or you love cars or you love trains, big giant things that take a lot of money and a lot of space to actually collect, it's quite easy. You just go to the accessories and the pieces. I just bought recently, I like old railroad stuff. I don't collect a lot of it, but I'm sort of getting into it. And I just got a placard that mounts into an old steam locomotive's coal car that gets pulled behind the steam locomotive. It's just the boilerplate style placard that's written whatever it is, and coal-o-matic, I think it says on it. It's super cool. I don't have it right here to show you, but hey, it's a podcast, so I can describe it. And I don't have room for a train engine, but I do have room for a cool little placard that came off of one or off a car. And the same goes with boats. You collect the brass Nautica. You don't have to have 40-foot space to store your stuff.
Yeah, some of these, the Chris Craft emblems and placards on them are highly collectible. And even, like I say, if you have
You mentioned old ads.
Yeah, old ads. And like you said, you don't have room for a 40 or 50-foot yacht. And I see it all the time. I mean, right now I could pull up my phone and probably show you 5 or 6, 48-foot Chris Craft Constellation. Just don't have time to restore it. Come and take it. It's yours. But then, and people want to jump at that, right? But then they don't realize, well, wait a minute. First of all, I've got to get this thing out of the water. I've got to find someone that'll haul it for me. And there's only a few people that can haul a 40,000-pound boat.
Yeah, it takes like a semi-truck and a special permit.
It's a massive undertaking. And so consequently, a lot of those boats get basically chopped up and scrapped out. And which is a shame, but I mean, that's sort of the way it is. There's even some marinas now that don't want to have wooden boats there because they're hard to insure, and so it's like everything. Things sort of they get left to the few, sort of, eh?
I got into boat collecting once about a year and a half ago, if you remember. I bought one boat. I'd never owned a boat before, and I decided, and this is a good lesson for people who don't know what they're getting into. I bought a beautiful old cabin cruiser off a friend of mine, and it was close to 30 feet, and it had a big old Chrysler 413 wedge. It was from 1966, fiberglass hull. Everything else was beautiful old wood. And I love the thing, but man, oh man, it's a full-time job owning a boat. And luckily that it was down in the same marina where Mike keeps his boat, and he lives closer to the marina than I do. For me, it's about a half hour away. And how many times you spotted little things, a line coming loose, a little water in, something that needs, the bilge isn't kicking in, whatever, just those things. So many times you save my arse by noticing things because you're a boat guy. It's not for the average Joe to do, though.
No.
You got to be ready to take on the lifestyle and the work.
And a lot of the thing about collecting boats, Clint, that drew me to it were the stories behind boats.
Yes.
What drew me to that boat too, and what draws me to particular boats that I decide that I'm gonna collect, is the story behind them. And that particular boat, which had been built by 6 boats like that had been built by the federal government in 1966. And it was used for traveling up and down the west coast of Canada, Vancouver, or British Columbia, and Vancouver Island, visiting First Nations communities, delivering supplies and whatever, and maybe sometimes even taking people who needed to get to a hospital back to the mainland. And the name of the boat, Tsimshian, means coastal people. And so just cool history behind it, cool story. The boat I just sold the other day had been owned, was a vintage 1970s Hydrodyne ski boat. And it had been owned by Jim Clooney, who at one time had been the world water ski jump champion. And him and his family, just outside of Melfort, Saskatchewan, have had water ski school there since the beginning of time. And that's where the boat came from. And it was just a cool story, cool boat. And now it's on its way up to a museum in Sorrento, British Columbia. So...
I love the story. That's what drew me to the boat that I bought, was that story, the Tsimshian, from going up and down the coastal waters. And it's just like collecting many things. The story brings you to it just as much as the item itself. And I got to say that the provenance of you talked about the one that's going to the museum that was owned by water ski champion Jim Clooney. You know, sometimes that attachment is half the value of something. You might have ignored it had it not had that connection. You know, the boat itself is cool, I'm sure, but suddenly you give it provenance and a story somehow connected to fame or fortune or whatever popular thing, it can really up the value of something. And that's the same with not just boats, but with anything.
Yeah, and even like I'm always in search of historically significant race boats, right? And believe it or not, there's a lot of them just sitting there, like rotting away, and because of the time and the effort. And you know, you'd be surprised that even like a big company like Chris Craft, if you contact them, which I have, and you say, hey, I know where there's this yacht, and it's, 1954 yacht, and would you guys be interested in a partnership with me to restore it? And they kind of go, well, it's 54 feet, it weighs 60,000 pounds. Not really, but if you have any race boats, we are interested in.
Oh,
interesting,
So they wanted to see their own history kind of brought back, the racing history.
Yeah. So
much like a car manufacturer.
Yeah. So sure. just if anyone's out there, interested in collecting boats, make sure there's a lot of cool old. Just because it's an old fiberglass boat does not really mean it's going to be collectible. Probably not. But if it's a Glastron or a Chris Craft or a Cobra or Stingray,
or has a story
to it.
Say you just happen to have the boat that was jumped by James Bond, and Live and Let Die. That might be worth something.
That might be worth something. But there were a lot of that boat. There were a lot of those made.
Okay, so it might be hard to prove which one it is too.
Yeah.
This has been interesting as heck. We're going to talk about more boats, I think, in a minute, and get to some a listener question maybe. You're watching the Collector's Cast. See you in a minute.
See you soon.
Welcome back to the Collector's Cast. As always, I'm sitting here with my cohort, my partner in crime, Mike Bloski, and we're about to go into, I think, a little bit of listener question section of the show here and see what some fine listener is asking.
Frederick Brody.
Frederick, welcome. Where's he from?
Frederick is from Inuvik.
Inuvik. Northwest Territories. Nice.
Hey guys, excited to ask a question on the show. I've been listening every week. I'm feeling a little unfulfilled by collecting lately. My collection isn't lighting my fire, and I just haven't had the drive to go looking for interesting finds. Have you guys ever had collecting fatigue? How have you guys gotten out of it? Thanks a bunch.
I've had collecting fatigue. I get very tired of it sometimes. Sometimes I just want to go in my house and shut it all off and not look at anything. It doesn't last long, fortunately. I just wonder, Inuvik, for those who don't know, that's Northwest Territories. That's at the far northern end of the world, the Dempster Highway, about 800K of gravel once you pass Dawson City. It's an incredible place to get to. But, you know, it would be cool picking up there because nothing much leaves. It takes so much to get it up there that once it's there, I doubt it comes back out.
Well, I imagine there'd be a lot of exactly that. A lot of stuff comes in and doesn't leave. So
when we had our guest Kelly Ingram from Old Yellow Auctions on, he brought some scrimshaw pieces. So there's probably some cool artwork up there. Yeah, you know what, Frederick? Just anything is tiring. Anything you do, if you're a collector, you're an artist, a musician, you get burnt out by anything in life. Just even if you love your job, you can get burnt out by your job. Yeah, it's very important to step back and take time out and enjoy what you have a little bit. This is one thing that I don't do enough. I don't stop and look at all my stuff. I'm always about the next thing, the next kill, the next hunt. I got to stop and look around and really enjoy what I have once in a while and just enjoy it for what it is. To go, this is why I collect. I want to sit here and look at all this great stuff I've amassed. And if you just keep on the hunt and kill mode too long, you will eventually burn out. So it's important. Take time for your own health, your mental health. Relax, recharge the batteries. And then when you reopen your eyes, it'll seem like a brand new day again.
Good advice, Clint. And I think one more thing that a guy could do is go through your collection and like take a long, hard look at all your stuff and say, okay, you know what? I've had this long enough. I've had that long enough. And put that stuff up for sale, take it to auction, move it along, and get some. And then you're sort of in a position now, wait, I got to get some new pieces. And you know as well as we know that when you get those new pieces, it's kind of like Christmas morning.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was going to add to what you said there. There's nothing recharges my batteries like taking a time of cleaning and selling. So if I decide, like you said, man, I'm sick of buying, but I start looking through my stuff and, you know, this can go, this can go, that can go. And I might take the stuff to a friend of mine with an auction. I might try to sell them myself online, which can be a big pain in the butt. You know, if you're trying to sell items one by one on your typical marketplace websites, boy, oh boy, we've both had our life's frustrations over dealing with the general public individually on trying to sell things. It'll drive you nuts. But I'm sorry, I'm getting off topic there. What I was trying to say to Frederick is that if you take that time to weed out and clean out your collection, nothing spurs more want to buy with me. That as soon as I see spaces on the wall, it drives me to get back in and I find a new excitement all over again. So,
and another thing, Frederick, maybe check out some different venues.
Yes, switch the venue up.
Switch your venue up.
Try a different place. Mind you, when you're in Inuvik, that's a long drive to try a different venue. I imagine you've only got so many places to look. Yeah. But, you know, when traveling down to the big world of Whitehorse or something, you know, see if there's a new store open. There's a great antique store in Prince Rupert, BC called Argosy. I met those people before. You think Prince Rupert, that is like kind of in the middle of between nothing and nowhere up there on the far northern coast of British Columbia. And there is a highway in and out. It's not boat access only or anything like that. But there's a great antique store up there. So if you're in Inuvik, that might be the closest place for you to go.
And you know, the internet is your friend.
Oh, yeah.
And, you know, it's shipping. The world has become a shipping oyster.
You're right. You're absolutely right, Mike. I'm stuck in the old days still thinking you have to physically go to places to buy things. But you're right. And I see that a lot. I actually sell a fair bit of stuff myself to people in a little out of the way communities because they go online and they find me here thanks to the wonders of the internet.
Wonders of the internet.
So hopefully that helps you out a little bit, Frederick.
And good luck, Frederick. And hey, drop us a line and let us know how if you've changed your ways a bit and how things are going.
Absolutely. If you're
We'd
getting
love
sick
to know.
of whatever ways you hunt for stuff, switch it around, try it a different way. Try auctions if you haven't, or try something other than auctions if you have.
Look on Clint's website, Clint the Collector, and buy a few things from him.
Go on Instagram and have a look at all the wonderful pictures I spend time taking. Yeah, great to hear from Frederick up there. I hope we did help him out a little bit. Having said that, I think we're going to move on to our trivia section now. And I'm counting on the boat expert in the room, since our subject today, our main theme has been boats.
Okay.
I'm counting on Michael to hit me with a good boat question here. Luckily, it'll be multiple choice because I probably don't know. But let's see.
Which president of the United States owned several Chris Crafts?
I think I know this. And why I know this, I don't know why I know this, but now I bought several of these wooden remote control boat models, as you know, Mike. I've had a couple Chris Crafts, Rivieras and the like. I've actually got a tri-cockpit Chris Craft in my house sitting on a windowsill. Models, all of them, of course. And when I had that first really one that you remember that one I loved that I sold for good money and I sent back to Ontario? This was a triple cockpit Chris Craft. And I always said, I can picture a little miniature JFK riding around in a captain's hat in that thing. And he comes from money, so I'm guessing. Was it JFK? Oh, you didn't even give me the multiple choice.
I didn't give you the multiple choice.
Oh,
I'm
sorry,
going to give you the multiple choice.
Okay, you know what? Give me the multiple choice. If JFK is not one of the three names, I want to change my answer.
President Clinton.
Okay.
President Trump.
Okay.
President Roosevelt.
Oh.
Owned several.
Several vintage boats?
Several Chris Crafts.
Well, when Roosevelt was in office, they would have been kind of a newer thing at the time. And you said in the 50s was when pleasure crafting came in. I'm just on but Trump's got enough money to have a collection of anything. And down in that place in, what is that big compound he has down in?
Remember, prior to the 50s, it was sort of an elitist thing.
But the Roosevelts had money. I don't think he didn't.
Which Roosevelt?
We're talking Franklin, right? Didn't we? Oh, did you differentiate? Did you say FDR or Teddy?
Teddy.
Oh, it's Teddy.
Yeah.
Oh. Teddy was in the 20s. I'm going to go with Teddy Roosevelt.
Teddy Roosevelt.
Yeah? He liked it? Well, he was an adventurer.
Yeah. And several presidents, several presidents had Chris Crafts after that.
Okay.
But Teddy, he was an adventurer and a roughneck.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
And he had a connection with Chris Craft.
He was a rough rider.
Rough rider.
I don't know how rough his neck was.
Yeah. And they and he had several Chris Crafts built for him.
Oh, custom built.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
And what would those? Here's a question I have, and I don't know: is what would those have for power plants? What zooms them around the lake?
Well, back then they would have had a 4-cylinder gas engine that Chris Craft made. Chris Craft made their own engines.
Were they diesels at one time?
No.
They were always gas?
Yeah, they were always. Some of the larger ones ended up being diesels.
Yeah.
Like when they got into.
Oh, when you get like the real big 40-foot.
Yeah, 40 foots. Yeah.
And did they ever use American V8s?
Yes. In the 50s and 60s, they did, and even in the interesting story with Chris Craft and Ford was Ford had developed the 427 side oiler engine.
Yes.
To race in NASCAR, and the engine was so good that they had an unfair advantage over everyone else. So NASCAR banned that engine, and it was also the engine they used in the Cobras, called the F block. And now Ford was sitting with all these engines and they didn't know what to do with them. And at that time, Chris Craft was really in the 60s building a lot of yachts.
Yes.
And they made a deal with Chris Craft for all those 427 Fords. The big Chris Craft that I owned, the 45-footer,
had twin
427 Fords.
In it. That's just crazy. You think one of those engines was worth about $10,000 or something,
Yeah.
And you had two of them in your boat.
Had two of them.
But that's also called an expensive hobby when something breaks.
Yes.
Well, I've been informed, and that's what trivia is supposed to do. It's supposed to get our minds working, but it's to teach and inform.
One more thing before we go off the boat thing about Chris Craft is I have this book. It's called, if anyone's interested in getting into boat collecting or just to learn about some boats, this book, The Legend of Chris Craft, is an awesome book. Find one of these in a used bookstore. Super book. It's not an encyclopedia of their boats, but a nice story of the history.
And are there pictures in there too?
Lots of pictures.
Because I like books with pictures.
And Chris Craft made a lot of minesweepers and landing crafts in the Second World War.
Wow.
They're big part of the war effort.
Excellent. You know, I came into this episode knowing something about boats, not a lot, but something. And now I still don't know a lot, but I know a little more. And that's really what we're here to do. We're here to both learn and educate the general public on collecting all things. And now we've covered boats a little bit.
A little bit, yeah.
That's excellent.
Awesome.
And your favorite subject, pretty much.
Well, one of them.
Yeah. We'll get into some of the other ones in a different show. You know, we really appreciate the listeners tuning in and giving us the opportunity to share our knowledge and to share the fun things that we do. And we hope you guys keep tuning in. I have always had a great time today, as always. My name's Clint Wilson, known as Clint the Collector. This is Mike Bloski. We hope to see you back soon.
Hope to see you soon. And don't be afraid of giving us a shout online and tell us about your collecting.
Feedback at thecollectorscast.com.
Love to hear from you.
Good day, all. We'll see you in a week.